Today I'll be talking about a little game called Child Street, developed by N4Bot and SSMA. I feel this game deserves more recognition for how well it manages to keep you on edge throughout the whole playthrough. Child Street also has a ton of silent jump scares, which if you watched my last video, is my favorite kind of jump scare in any horror game because of how effective it is at keeping tension between the player. I also feel this game's story reminds me a little of Hello Neighbor and what it could have been if Hello Neighbor relied more on horror rather than puzzles. With that said, I'll be talking about and explaining the story of Child Street and going over why I think this game is such a good representation of what Hello Neighbor could have been. Before I get started, if you're at all interested in playing this game, I highly suggest trying it out before watching this video, because I go over many spoilers. I'll make sure to leave a link to the Steam page. It's about an hour long and is currently on sale for $5.24 till the 17th on Steam. With that said, let's get right into it. So, the game starts you off playing as a child waking up in a room. Your first goal is to get out of the house by escaping through the window, but in order to do so, you have to find a rope to climb down. You try to open the only door that leaves the room, but find out it's tied shut. You look around for something to cut it, and end up finding a pair of clippers in a box that also has a severed hand. You use the clippers on the tied door and explore parts of the house and search for rope. After looking around a bit, you come across a room that has rope, but the door is locked, and you need a lockpick to open it. While looking for a lockpick, you come across your favorite toy monkey that seems to have a camera in it. After looking around a bit, you find a room that has a chair and a pair of binoculars, and a red door where you can hear someone on the other side. In the room, you find a paperclip and use it to open the door to get the rope. While grabbing the rope from the room, you get spotted by a man and he tries to stop you from escaping. Thinking on your feet, you barricade the door and climb out the window using the rope, but end up slipping and fall to the ground, making you unconscious. After this, you take on a different person's perspective, with this person looking at an abandoned house across the street using binoculars. While looking through his binoculars, he talks about how he often watched the abandoned house across the street. He says, "Everyone thinks my neighbor is missing, but not me." Towards the end of the cutscene, he sees lights on and a silhouette of a man. He decides to put an end to this mystery of the abandoned house. You find out you're playing as a kid named Armin from the letter he writes to his mom and dad, saying, "If you're reading this, I've gone to that strange house I keep talking about. You saw those pictures you didn't want to see, scolded me, forbade me to go there, so I have to go there at night secretly from you. Just want to quench my curiosity and stop thinking about that house all the time." You go to your closet and get your backpack and a hat, and also find you have 4 photos of sightings of something or someone in the house. You also find out Armin was given a stuffed bunny by the missing neighbor across the street. The bunny has a red eye and a label A for the first letter of Armin. Armin sneaks through the window and grabs a flashlight and exits through the back gate, heading through an opening in the fence of the neighbor's house. While making your way to the neighbor's house, you come across a sign and find out you live on Child Street. When going through the fence, you see lights flickering on the second floor. You try going through the front door for it to be locked, but when you walk away, it opens for you. Armin heads into the house and tries to find a way to the room with the flickering lights. You find out you can't go up the stairs because it's blocked, but when looking up the staircase, you can see a figure at the top staring at you. You try finding another way to get to the second floor by going through the living room, but when you get there, you find that all the doorways are blocked. Armin continues to look for another way, but after a while you decide to go outside and go around the back of the house. As you walk to the back, you come across a little merry-go-round and a bench with handcuffs attached to them. When you finally reach the back patio, you catch a glimpse of a figure before walking through the back door. You find out the back door leads to the kitchen and dining room, but you eventually find another staircase that leads to the second floor. When you finally enter the room that had flickering lights, you find it's the same room with the red door from the intro, but with different furniture in it. In the room, there's a bunch of flickering lights and a chair with binoculars, insinuating someone or something was watching Armin. There's also a computer, and when you walk closer to it, it turns on and starts typing on its own, saying, "We've been waiting for you." One after another, the lights turn off and you hear raspy noises and smell a bad odor from the red door. The lights start flickering again and then stop. After this event, you find part of a key that goes to the red door. Armin decides that the lights are on because something is wrong with the electricity, and he decides to head back home. When heading back, you come across a ball moving on its own, hitting a door. You investigate it and find that it leads to a bedroom with a creepy doll. You can hear it breathe when you get closer to it. You also find that from this room someone has been watching you too, but when you look out the window you can see a figure staring back at you from across the street. After investigating the room, you continue to head back home by going downstairs and walking around the front side of the house, but find your hat is in the living room. You head to the living room through the front entrance and find a red note with a smiley face saying, "Let's play." This is when you hear hysterical laughter from the bathroom. You also see the lights are now red. When you go to the bathroom, you see the doll holding your hat to you from the shower curtains. When Armin tries to leave, you find that the door is locked. Armin says that his bunny has similar labels and figures he must find other toys that have these and fill in the empty spaces on the door. Armin tries to grab the bunny, but the doll takes it away before he could grab it. You then see your toy on the other side of the door where the diner is, but the door is locked. You also find that the hallways and the doorways are missing from the living room. While looking around, you end up finding the last piece of the key to the red door in the fireplace. You also realize the staircase is now clear for you to go upstairs. You go back to the room with the red door and open it to find a malnourished child chained to one of the pipes, and his leg cut off in this dirty closet. You also see writing on the wall saying, "I just want to be happy." Blew my voice when I was screeching for help. Because of this, he decided to sew up my mouth. Now I can't eat. My hairs started to fall out and the skin began to rot. I haven't eaten for 2 weeks. I want to go back to my mom. You see he has one of the labels for the locked door and he won't give it to you till you give him food. You head down to the kitchen where you found Stu laying around. On the way down you see a red note that says, "Now I'm alone. But I keep hearing stopping at night, and even laughter that has been absent from this house for so long." When grabbing the stew, you also pick up your stuffed bunny and take the A label with you. It opens saying, "Happy birthday" from your neighbor across the street. You then put in the lock of the front door, and after doing so, you see the ghost of a kid at the top of the staircase. You follow the kid, which leads you to a UV-lit room. You come across a man that hung himself, which might be the neighbor. The room also has handcuffs and tools that look to be used for surgical use. This might have been where the neighbor tortured the kids as well. You see a brain on a cutting table and a note next to it saying, "At one point it went too far. Martuelia was too real. It seemed to me that she started to live her own life. I found a dead boy's toy in the trash and I'm sure it was her. I put it over the TV so no one would get it. I began to be afraid of her. I constantly felt that she was standing behind me, watching me, breathing on my back. Her lack of heart made her dangerous." This note was signed BR, the same signature as the ones on the labels of the toys. After figuring out where the other label is, above the TV, you head to the living room. But before that, you give the child from the red door food, but find out the child is already dead. You pick up the toy with the label since he's dead and find out this label is L and says, "You're a good ballerina. You have a great future. Take care of yourself." After putting it into the empty slot, you head over to the living room and realize the toy above the TV is too high, so you get a chair from the dining room. You take the label U from the toy, and it says, "You are lucky to be born with such a pretty face. Take this toy from me." After taking it, the TV turns red. You head back to place the label which finishes the first word, Euelia. After placing it, you see a ghost of a child in the dining room. You follow the child all the way to the room that you saw at the beginning of the game, and when you get into the room, you see a child looking out the window, looking in bad condition. In the closet room, you also find a cage big enough to hold the child, probably used to torture kids. You speak to the child saying hello. He says, "Hi Armin, have you seen a white toy here? Like a monkey." This gives you a choice. You can either say, "Who are you? Where do you know me from?" Or, "I'll try to help you, just please tell me what's going on here." Also, quick note, I've tried all dialogue options, but it turns out it doesn't matter which one you choose. You always get the same response from the child. Back to the child, he says, "I'm Max, we know all about you. We've been watching you. We've been waiting for a long time. Time is dragging on very slowly here. It's cold and scary. I've been searching for this toy for a long time, but I haven't found anything. The doll maker hid it to punish me." You ask, "And what is the strange lock on the front door? And how to open it?" He responds with, "The kids put the lock so you wouldn't run away too soon. Instead of a key, each child used a label from the toys, given by the toy maker before we found ourselves here. You have a choice to ask, why don't you all want to let me out? Or, what do you all want to do with me?" He says, "You are our salvation, but it's not finished yet. The doll maker made the doll from our best body parts, but he did not have time to insert the heart. But it's okay, soon it'll tear out your heart and become kind, and we'll all finally rest in peace. You say, but my mom and dad are waiting for me at home alive. You said you lost a toy, let me find it. The boy says, that'd be great. The camera that the doll built into the toy will help you find it. He used cameras to watch the children and select the best. You'll find access to the camera on this tablet. This ends the conversation with Max, and you grab the tablet to find that only 2 cameras are working. One of the cameras is located in the closet near the kitchen, and the other is located in the basement. You go down to the closet near the kitchen and find the toy with the label M. That says, I hope this toy will bring you happiness. You place the label into the door, and this causes the lights to start flickering. The flickering lights lead to the basement, and in the basement you find a note written by the doll maker. It reads, I didn't have any friends when I was a kid. I tried to replace them with toys, but they weren't as lively. I made my first toy out of a dismembered cat. It wasn't like the others, it had a soul. Soon I made toys out of a bird, a dog, and even a man who was hit by a car. I gave them a better life. I couldn't stand in one place. I wanted something more. That's how my latest project, Mortulia, was born. When looking around in the basement, you come across a lot of coffins. You end up finding something buried in the floor of the basement, and use a shovel to dig it up. You find out it's a buried coffin, and inside is a girl and the toy with the last label. When looking at the girl, you also realize her eyes are gouged out. You take the toy with the label R, which says, take care of your wonderful eyes. Let this toy be a reminder for me. After taking the label, the lights go out and the corpse of the child wakes up. You then make your way to the front door while also seeing all the children watching you, trying to stop you from escaping. You place the last label and it finally spells out Mortualia. You escape from the way you came, and the game goes to a cutscene of you entering your room again. You look back to see the doll outside looking at you. Armin goes on to talk about even though it's been months, he still gets dreams that take him back to that awful house. Lastly, Armin says the realization that I can't change anything is driving me crazy. This causes Armin to take his own life at the end of the game. Alright, so a lot is going on here with the story. Let's start back from the beginning to make it easier to explain what is going on here. So the kid you play as at the beginning of the game is Max, the kid Armin talks to in the dollmaker's house. Max was probably kidnapped and was held up in the room you see at the beginning. When Max goes to open the room with the rope to escape, he comes across his favorite toy monkey. When looking at it, you can see that there is some recording device in the monkey's left eye. Max questions why his toy is there. I think it was probably placed there so the dollmaker could see if Max or the other kids are attempting to escape. This is also probably why when Max gets the rope, the dollmaker comes to the door to get you right after, because the dollmaker caught Max on camera. Max tries to escape using a rope, but slips and falls, going unconscious, most likely getting tortured and killed based on how he appears when Armin explores the house. After this, you are taken to Armin's perspective. Armin is very curious about the building, but we aren't really told why he is, besides that the neighbor went missing. I think before this, the neighbor was friendly to Armin and made him a stuffed bunny with a camera in it, because Armin might have been part of the dollmaker's plan for the creation of Mortualia. Maybe sometime after this encounter, the neighbor stops showing up, and Armin doesn't see the neighbor anymore, and sees weird activities going on at the house at night. This causes Armin to investigate and watch the house, capturing any evidence and sharing it with his parents, based on what we see from the notes written to his parents and the photos in the closet. The parents scolded him for spying on the neighbor, who is the dollmaker, and forbade him from going to the house. In retaliation, from too much curiosity, Armin leaves a note for his parents and explains he needs to see what's going on at the house and sneaks out at night. When you go to the house, you make it to the room that has lights on and find no one there but a chair and binoculars there. The computer also explains we've been waiting for you. I think the kids that died in the house were the ones that are saying we've been waiting for you, based on what Max says. This is probably why there were so many lights going off. It was to attract Armin into the house. Armin, not knowing what is going on, thinks that the lights have just been going off because of electrical issues, so he decides to head back home. When heading back, you see a child-sized doll, which we now know is a doll named Mortualia, made from a bunch of child body parts, based on what Max tells us and the notes we find written by the dollmaker. It's also interesting to take note that the doll's eyes are real, which explains why they look so red. When Armin gets his hat from the living room and tries to escape, the door is locked by a strange mechanism where you need to place labels in the areas that are missing letters. These labels are part of all the dollmaker's toys that he's made for each kid that are part of his plan for his creation of Mortualia. Each of these labels has sentences written by the doll maker with his signature BR, the same signature for the doll maker's notes. You'll find most of these sentences from each label written by the doll maker are related to something he admires about the kid, which are things he plans to take and put into the doll Mortualia. For example, the kid you find in the red door has his legs cut off to be used for the doll based on what he says on the label. You're a good ballerina, you have a great future, take care of yourself. Or the label R, which you find in the coffin of the corpse that has missing eyes. The sentence says, take care of your wonderful eyes, let this toy be a reminder for me. You learn that when younger, the doll maker didn't have any friends and looked to toys as his companion, but it wasn't enough based on his notes. The reason the doll maker is creating Mortualia out of children parts is because he has found through experimenting that when making toys from dead things, they capture the soul of the once living. He plans to use this combination of children parts to create a friend Mortualia, but during the creation, she becomes more lifelike than he was anticipating and had a life of its own. It became dangerous due to it having no heart based on the notes the doll maker wrote. I think at some point the doll maker was killed or driven mad by Mortualia, because Armin finds an adult had hung himself in a room where the doll maker would take off body parts from the children. Also, the doll maker might have tried to keep these kids alive in his house to have friends, even with their missing parts, based on the kid you find in the red door being kept for over 2 weeks. You also see a playset and a bench with handcuffs outside the house in the back, showing that the doll maker would take these kids outside to spend time together and then put them back in the house. When these kids finally passed away, the doll maker probably placed them in coffins and stored them in the basement based on the number of coffins you see down there. Towards the end, you are told by Max that the doll wants to take Armin's heart, which is what the doll is missing. After this, all the souls of the children will be set free. Armin manages to escape, completing the lock mechanism using the kids' labels from their toys, spelling out the doll's name, Mortualia, which can be seen as a metaphor for how all these kids are part of Mortualia. I think the reason these kids can't rest is because the doll maker put all these parts from traumatized kids into the doll, keeping all that fear and anger, creating something dangerous. And since the children are part of this doll, their souls can't be set free. Somehow, by giving Mortualia a heart and completing the doll, it will set the doll at peace, and in turn, bring all the child's souls to rest, which is why they attracted Armin to the house. But Armin escapes and makes it home, most likely leaving the souls of the children to continue suffering because the doll still has no heart. At the end of the game, I think Armin hangs himself because of the doll. He kept having dreams of the house and saw the torture there, and it drove Armin mad. This could also be what happened to the doll maker. Overall, I think this theory fits the best and explains most of the story. Now that I've talked about the story and explained it, let's talk about what I liked and didn't like, and why I think this game represents what Hello Neighbor could have been. I think the best part about this game is the amount of silent jump scares that are used. You'll see the doll creeping around a corner, or hide as soon as you lock eyes with it. You'll see the doll in random areas where you can miss encountering it altogether if you don't look around thoroughly. For example, when you see the staircase is blocked and you look up to see the doll staring back at you, it's unnerving and sets the tone for the rest of the game. It's something you can miss if you don't look hard enough. I'm sure there are a couple of silent jump scares I've missed during my playthrough, but this isn't a bad thing though, because knowing I probably missed some silent jump scare tells me as the player I am always being watched, and that anything could pop up, catching me off guard, and that there's something going on in the background that I might have not even noticed. As a player, you come across many silent jump scares, and the game sets in stone that your every move is being watched by something. By doing this, the game enhances the tension between the player and the feeling of being watched. The game also has good loud jump scares that will catch you off guard. There aren't that many, but I think the silence between scares is what makes this game so tense. You never know when to expect a jump scare, because in other areas of the game where you would expect one, there's nothing, which brings you into this false sense of safety. I also really like the sound design. It's nothing crazy, but it's enough that enhances the tone of the game. There's a good amount of silence, and background music chimes in at the right moment to make you tense all over again. I especially enjoyed the voice acting from Max. It was well done, and during some dialogue came off as very unsettling. My favorite part of the game is when you read the red note in the living room, and then you start hearing hysterical laughter from the doll in the bathroom. The acting was so good that it gave me goosebumps while playing through this part. It felt real, and it made me feel like all hell was going to break loose. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew it wasn't going to be good. To help you understand just how amazing this part is, here's what it looked like when I played through. Again, I can't stress this enough. This part was really well done, and to me was one of the best parts of the game. Overall, the sound design in this game is pretty good and gets the job done. The same goes for gameplay. It's like most horror games out there, you walk around exploring an area that you aren't familiar with, while also finding objects that are used to open the doors. Overall, the gameplay is very linear with only one way of doing something, which is fine, but it would have been nice to have more options or choices in the story. For example, the dialogue with Max, you had choices, but they weren't important because no matter what you picked, Max would say the same thing. Also, I feel this game would be greatly enhanced by having to run and hide from the doll at certain points in the game to really drive that you could be attacked at any given moment. The only chase sequence in the game is at the beginning when the doll maker chases Max. I understand from a developer's point of view it'd add a lot more work since coding AI isn't easy, especially for an indie game. Maybe to make it easier you could create a scripted chase scene for the doll, the same way the doll maker chases Max. I feel by doing this it would be a good balance of enhancing the game while also not putting too much extra work for the developers. Overall, I think the developers did a good job with the gameplay and understood what they could and couldn't do and where they wanted to put their time into this game. So now you're probably wondering, alright, how is this game a good representation of what Hello Neighbor could have been? Well, let me tell you. First off, the story is very similar to that of Hello Neighbor. In the game, you're a kid that has a neighbor across the street that is acting suspicious. Out of curiosity, you go into the neighbor's house and find that he's hiding something behind the door. You spend the game solving puzzles and hiding from the neighbor till you figure out the mystery behind the neighbor. Does this sound familiar to you? Because in 9 Child Street, you also play as a kid that is curious about the neighbor across the street, and you're also solving the mystery of what the neighbor has been up to. As you can see, there are some similarities in terms of the story. The big difference being, though, is the gameplay. The best way to describe Hello Neighbor's gameplay loop is hiding from the neighbor and solving ludicrous puzzles to get farther into the story. Overall, the game isn't very focused on horror, and many things in the game goes against what makes the game scary. 9 Child Street's game loop doesn't have puzzles. Instead, it has simple objectives to get farther into the story. While doing this, the game uses all the tricks in the book to keep the player in suspense, creating tension between the player. I think if 9 Child Street had an AI with pathfinding like Hello Neighbor does, it would be everything people wanted from Hello Neighbor. Hello Neighbor got popular for its horror through the use of an AI antagonist that learns the player's every move by placing down traps. When it got fully released, people found out that devs of Hello Neighbor switched the game in a different direction, focusing more on solving puzzles, while keeping in the AI antagonist. The implementation of these two did not mix and created a very annoying game to play through. 9 Child Street is the closest you'll ever get to how horrific Hello Neighbor could have been. It had an amazing story, it had amazing suspense, and it had mysteries. The only thing missing is the antagonist, which was a big part of what made Hello Neighbor. With that said, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. Also, don't be afraid to leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the game, or my take on how this is a representation of what Hello Neighbor could have been. With that said, thanks for watching, and see you next time.